That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. The sun crested the horizon over Coronado Naval Base, casting long shadows across the obstacle course. Petty Officer First Class Ryan Harlan adjusted the strap of his tactical vest, the weight familiar against his shoulders. At 34, with 8 years in naval special warfare, he'd run this drill 100 times. The air carried the sharp tang of salt from the Pacific, mixed with the faint diesel hum of idling Humvees on the perimeter road. His boots crunched on the gravel path as he approached the kennel block, a squat concrete building flanked by chain-link fences. "Harlan, formation in 5!" barked Chief Petty Officer Ellis from the assembly area. The chief's voice cut through the morning chatter like a knife. Clipped, authoritative, no room for delay. Ryan nodded without breaking stride, his gloved hand already reaching for the kennel door. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed softly, illuminating rows of metal crates. Most were empty this early, handlers still en route, but one held a familiar shape. Jax, his Belgian Malinois partner of 6 years. Jax rose as the door latch clicked, his dark ears perking forward. The dog's coat was a sleek black and tan, marked by a healed scar along his flank from a training mishap in Afghanistan. Ryan knelt, offering a quiet hand signal, palm flat, thumb tucked. Jax pressed his muzzle against it, a brief nuzzle that spoke of trust, forged in silence. No words needed. Their bond was in the shared rhythms of breath and pulse during ops, the way Jax would freeze at a scent humans missed, saving the team from improvised explosives buried in sun-baked sand. "Easy, boy," Ryan murmured, clipping the lead to Jax's harness. The dog padded beside him as they exited, his nails clicking steadily on the concrete. Outside, the base stirred to life. Platoons forming up in crisp utilities, the distant crackle of a PA system calling roll. SEAL Team 3's K9 unit was a tight operation. 8 handlers, each paired with a specialized dog for detection, patrol, or search. Ryan's role was straightforward. Jax excelled at narcotics and explosives, his nose a precision tool in high-stakes insertions, but today was routine quals, obstacle navigation, scent trails, nothing that demanded the full kit. They joined the formation near the course entrance, where barriers of barbed wire and climbing walls loomed under the climbing sun. Chief Ellis paced the front, clipboard in hand, his salt and pepper buzz cut, gleaming. "Listen up. Standard rotation. Handlers first, dogs second. Maintain control at all times. Any deviation you retrain from scratch." His eyes scanned the line, lingering on Ryan. The chief had a reputation for precision. One loose rein could mean a failed eval, and failed evals meant desk duty. Ryan took his position third in line, Jax sitting alert at his left heel. The first handler moved out, Petty Officer Reyes with her German shepherd, Luna, scaling a rope ladder with practiced efficiency. Cheers rippled from the sidelines, where Junior enlisted watched from the bleachers. Ryan felt the familiar tension in his shoulders, not from the course, but from the weight of expectation. Jax had been his constant through 3 deployments, detecting threats that kept the platoon breathing. Yet lately, whispers circulated, budget cuts looming, older dogs like Jax facing retirement. Ryan pushed the thought aside as his turn approached. "Harlan, you're up," Ellis called. Ryan signaled Jax forward, the dog mirroring his every step, low crawl under netting, then a swift vault over a log wall. The obstacle course was designed to test synergy, handler and K9 as one unit, no hesitation. Jax cleared a mud pit without a splash, his paws sure on the slick wood planks. Ryan's radio crackled faintly, backup comms for the drill, but the focus was absolute. At the final station, a mock building entry, Jax alerted on cue to a hidden device, sitting rigid with a low whine. "Solid work," Ellis noted, marking his clipboard. But as Ryan led Jax back to formation, a jeep pulled up to the edge of the course. Lieutenant Commander Hale stepped out, his dress blues impeccable despite the dust. Hale oversaw the K9 program for the base, a by-the-book officer with a file full of commendations. He conferred briefly with Ellis, then raised his voice over the group. "Petty Officer Harlan, front and center." Ryan's pulse quickened, but he kept his face neutral, handing Jax's lead to a nearby handler before double-timing it over. The formation fell silent, eyes forward but ears attuned. Jax watched from afar, his head tilted slightly, sensing the shift. "Sir," Ryan said, snapping a salute. Hale returned it crisply. "Your eval's clean, as expected, but we've got a situation." Jax's latest vet check flagged joint stiffness, age catching up. Effective immediately, he's off active rotation. "You'll reassign to solo quals until we process retirement." The words landed like a gut punch, though Ryan's expression didn't crack. Retirement for Jax meant separation. The dog to a training facility upstate, Ryan back to standard ops without his partner. They'd been through too much. Nights in the Hindu Kush, where Jax's alert pulled him from a tripwire. The quiet loyalty in barracks, when doubt crept in. "Understood, sir. When do I—" "Tomorrow," Hale cut in. "Paperwork's already started. Focus on the team. Sentiment doesn't factor in chain of command." Ryan nodded, throat tight. "Yes, sir." As he returned to formation, the chief's gaze met his, sympathetic but no interference. The drill resumed, handlers rotating through, but the rhythm felt off. Jax sat patiently, unaware of the decision that would sever their partnership. That afternoon, in the kennel block's dim light, Ryan brushed Jax's coat with mechanical strokes. The dog's tail thumped softly against the crate floor, oblivious to the forms gathering on Ryan's desk. Retirement wasn't just protocol, it was erasure. No ceremony for working dogs. No public nod to their service. Ryan had seen it before, handlers left with photos. The bond dissolved into routine. He scratched behind Jax's ears, feeling the warmth of fur under his fingers, the steady rise and fall of the dog's flanks. Outside, the base wind picked up, rattling the fences. Ryan stared at the horizon, where the ocean met sky in a haze. Duty demanded compliance. He'd follow orders, as always, but as Jax leaned into his touch, a quiet resolve stirred. This wasn't just about one dog, it was the system's blind spot, the loyalty that fueled their world, overlooked in the grind of ranks and reports. Little did Ryan know that resolve would soon draw eyes from beyond the wire, testing everything he held to the code. The next day dawned with the relentless precision of base revel, the bugle cutting through the fog, rolling off the bay. Ryan Harlan stood at attention in the briefing room of the K9 Annex, his utilities starched and boots polished to a mirror shine. The room smelled of fresh coffee from the urn in the corner and the faint lingering musk of dog hair on the folding chairs. Around the scarred oak table sat the unit's handlers, Reyes, Kowalski and a few others, flipping through ops manuals while Chief Ellis reviewed the morning schedule on the whiteboard. Jax was absent, kennelled separately, per the new directive, a small but sharp absence that tugged at Ryan's focus. "Harlan," Ellis said, not looking up from his notes, "solo rotation starts today. You'll shadow the demo team on perimeter sweeps. No K9 support. Reyes takes Jax's slot for quals." Ryan's jaw tightened imperceptibly, but he responded with the expected crispness. "Understood, Chief." He adjusted his position, the chair creaking under his weight. The chief's words weren't punitive, they were procedural, a cog in the machine of readiness. SEALs adapted. That was the ethos drilled into them from Bud S. But as the briefing dragged on, discussions of scent protocols, false positive rates and upcoming joint exercises, Ryan's mind replayed Hale's announcement. Joint stiffness, age catching up. At 7 years, Jax was no pup, but his alerts had been flawless on the last deployment, pinpointing a cache of RPGs in a derelict compound outside Kandahar. Retirement forms didn't account for that. They tallied mileage and medical logs, reducing partnership to metrics. After the session, Ryan lingered as the others filed out, grabbing his ruck from the hook by the door. Ellis paused at the threshold, his broad frame blocking the light from the hallway. "You good?" The chief's tone was low, almost paternal, a rare crack in the armor. Ryan met his gaze steadily. "Just processing, Chief. Jax has pulls left in him." Ellis nodded once, the lines around his eyes deepening. "Paperwork's ironclad. Vet's call, Hale's sign-off. Push it, and you're volunteering for the review board." He clapped Ryan's shoulder, a brief contact heavy with unspoken understanding, then strode off toward the armory. Alone, Ryan exhaled slowly, the room's quiet amplifying the distant bark of a dog in training. He shouldn't push. Chain of command was sacred, the spine of their operations. Question it, and you risked the whole structure, doubt creeping into missions where hesitation could cost lives. Yet, as he shouldered his ruck and headed for the perimeter trail, the image of Jax in a sterile upstate facility gnawed at him. No more shared patrols, no instinctive flank during night ops. The dog had pulled him from a drainage ditch in Helmand, scenting floodwater laced with chemicals before the platoon waded in. Loyalty like that didn't retire on a form. The perimeter sweep was rote, a 2-mile loop along the base's razor-wire fence. Eyes scanning for breaches, radio checks with the tower every quarter mile. Ryan moved methodically, his M4 slung low, the sun warming the black polymer grip. Seagulls wheeled overhead, their cries mingling with the rhythmic thud of his boots on packed dirt. Solo felt exposed, like running without a shadow. Jax's presence had always been an extension of his senses. The dog's ears twitching at frequencies he couldn't hear. Now, the trail stretched empty, interrupted only by the occasional patrol jeep rumbling past. Halfway through, near the eastern gate where the fence met the dunes, Ryan spotted a familiar figure. Master Chief Vargas, the unit's senior enlisted advisor, leaning against a Humvee with a thermos in hand. Vargas was a lifer, 25 years in, his face weathered like old leather from desert rotations. He waved Ryan over, the gesture casual but deliberate. "Harlan, heard about your boy." Vargas's voice was gravelly, tempered by years of salt air and shouted commands. He offered the thermos, black coffee, strong enough to strip paint. Ryan took a pull, the bitterness grounding him. "Standard procedure, Master Chief. He's earned his rest." Vargas snorted softly, eyes on the horizon where cargo ships dotted the bay. "Earned? That's the rub. Saw it with my first partner, a shepherd named Duke. Pulled him from a hot LZ in '09, shrapnel in his haunch. Vet said retire, and poof, gone to some adoption center. Handler got a pat on the back and reassigned. No ceremony, no nothing. Systems built for turnover, not tributes." Ryan handed back the thermos, his fingers lingering on the warm metal. "What did you do?" "Followed orders." Vargas's gaze sharpened. "But I wrote letters, to brass, to the foundation that handles retired MWDs, pushed for a handler visitation policy. Took 2 years, but they bent. Now guys like you can check in quarterly." He paused, the wind tugging at his collar. "Don't let it eat you, or do. Just know the chain flexes if you apply torque right." The words hung there, a quiet permission amid the discipline. Ryan saluted, sharp, respectful, and resumed his sweep, Vargas's Humvee fading in the dust. Torque. The idea settled like a round in the chamber, not rebellion, but precision advocacy. Back at the annex by midday, Ryan logged his report in the ops shack, the keyboard clacking under fluorescent glare. His inbox blinked with routine, maintenance schedules, a memo on budget reallocations. One line caught his eye. K9 retirement processing accelerated due to fiscal constraints. Jax's name was on the list, slotted for transport in 2 weeks. That evening, as the base quieted under a bruised purple sky, Ryan made his way to the kennel unannounced. The guards nodded him through. Handlers had after-hours access for care. Jax rose in his crate, tail wagging in that measured way, sensing the shift in Ryan's stride. He unlatched the door, letting the dog stretch in the exercise yard, a fenced patch of gravel lit by sodium lamps. Jax circled once, then pressed against Ryan's leg, warm fur against khakis. "Sit," Ryan commanded softly. And Jax obeyed, eyes locked on his. In the silence, broken only by the lap of waves from the nearby cove, Ryan ran through scenarios. An informal appeal to Hale, citing Jax's recent performance logs, or looping in Vargas for backing. Duty said comply, keep the unit seamless. But morality, that deeper current, whispered of the bond as mission-critical, deserving recognition beyond crates and forms. As Jax tilted his head, ears flicking at a distant siren, Ryan clipped on the lead for a short walk. The yard's chain link rattled in the breeze, shadows lengthening. He wouldn't defy outright, not yet. But he'd document, advocate quietly, honor the partnership that had defined his service. Unbeknownst to him, beyond the base's secure perimeter, a ripple was already forming. A young girl in a Midwestern town, clutching a crayon drawing of a brave dog, her letter en route to an address she'd found in a veteran's newsletter. Addressed not to a man, but to Jax himself. It would arrive like an unexpected alert, pulling Ryan's resolve into the light. The fluorescent hum of the ops shack cut through the evening hush as Ryan Harlan logged the final entry of his shift. His fingers paused over the keyboard, the screen's glow casting sharp angles on his face. Outside, the sodium lamps along the kennel path flickered to life, painting the gravel in pools of amber. Jax's walk had stretched longer than intended, the dog's steady gait a reminder of rhythms now threatened. Ryan powered down the terminal with a decisive click, shouldering his ruck and heading out into the cooling air. The base at dusk carried a disciplined quiet, distant footsteps of a sentry patrol, the low thrum of generators feeding the armory. Back in his barracks quarters, a Spartan room with a single bunk, a wall locker and a framed photo of Jax mid-alert. Ryan shed his utilities, the fabric whispering against the tile floor. He moved methodically, folding each item with creases aligned, muscle memory from countless inspections. Sleep wouldn't come easy. The day's conversations replayed like a looped briefing tape. Vargas's words about torque lingered, a subtle challenge to the chain's rigidity. Ryan sat on the bunk's edge, pulling a notepad from his drawer. Not for rebellion, but for record. Notes on Jax's performance metrics, cross-referenced with vet logs. If he appealed, it would be factual, layered in protocol. The next morning broke with the sharp blast of reveille, pulling Ryan from a fitful rest. He dressed in the dim light filtering through the blinds, the cotton of his PT shirt cool against his skin. Breakfast in the mess hall was efficient. Black coffee, oatmeal, no lingering. By 0600, he was at the K9 Annex for the unit's mandatory formation. Handlers stood in two ranks under the overhang, the salt-laced breeze tugging at trouser hems. Chief Ellis called the roll, his voice steady over the group's muted responses. "Harlan?" "Here, Chief." Ryan's reply was automatic, eyes front. Jax remained in his isolated crate per orders, the absence like a missing squad member. The formation dispersed to assignments, scent training for the active pairs, maintenance drills for the solo rotations. Ryan drew perimeter duty again, this time with a junior handler, Petty Officer 2nd Class Nguyen, for cross-training. They set out along the western fence line, where the dunes gave way to scrub brush. Nguyen, fresh from A-school, kept pace with eager questions. "How's the transition, PO1? Solo feels off without the furball, right?" His tone was respectful, probing without presumption. Ryan scanned the wire as they walked, the metal links glinting under the rising sun. "Adapt and overcome. Focus on your sweep patterns, eyes low for tracks." He demonstrated a radio check, thumbing the PTT button with a crackle of static. Tower. This is Harlan. All clear Sector 7. The response came prompt. Copy, Harlan. Proceed. Nguyen nodded, mimicking the procedure. The routine grounded Ryan, a reminder of the unit's interdependence. But as they crested a rise overlooking the bay, a postal jeep rumbled into view, pulling up to the main gate. Routine mail run, letters, packages for the deployed mindset, even stateside. By midday, back at the annex, Ryan checked the duty mailbox slotted for handlers. Bills, a newsletter from the MWD Foundation, and a plain envelope, postmarked from Iowa. No return address, but the handwriting was childish, blocky letters in blue ink. He slit it open with his pocket knife, unfolding a single sheet of lined paper. Inside, a crayon drawing. A black and tan dog with alert ears. Standing beside a soldier in camouflage, a bomb sketched crudely at their feet. The text read, "Dear Jax, I saw your picture in Daddy's army book. He said you saved lives in the war. My dog at home got old too and we kept him. Please don't go away. You're a hero. Can you come play? From Emily, age 8. Ryan's breath caught, the paper crinkling in his grip. How? The address was the unit's general P.O. box, but specified to Jax, COK9 Unit Coronado. Someone had leaked details, perhaps from that veteran's newsletter Vargas mentioned. He traced the drawing's lines, the innocence piercing the barrack's sterility. Jax wasn't just a line item. To this girl he was legend, a symbol beyond metrics. He folded the letter carefully, tucking it into his breast pocket next to his dog tags. Duty urged discretion. Mail to animals wasn't protocol, could be seen as a breach if escalated. But conscience stirred. The talk Vargas described, tightening. During lunch in the chow line, Ryan overheard Reyes at a table, her voice low with the others. Heard Harlan's pushing back on the retirement, quiet-like, but words out. Nguyen glanced his way, but Ryan kept moving, tray in hand. After chow, he sought out Ellis in the gear room, where harnesses hung in neat rows, the air thick with leather oil. "Chief, got a minute?" Ellis straightened from inspecting a lead, wiping his hands on a rag. "Make it quick, Harlan. What's on your mind?" Ryan pulled the letter, holding it out. "This came for Jax. Kid from the Midwest, thinks he's a hero. Reminds me why we fight the forms. Request permission to appeal the retirement formal channel. Performance logs attached." Ellis took the paper, scanning it with a furrowed brow. The chief's silence stretched, broken only by the distant yelp of a dog in play. "Bold, PO1. Hale won't like civilians in the mix, but it's clean, procedural. I'll route it up. Just know this spotlights the unit. Eyes on you now." "Understood." Ryan saluted, the motion crisp. As he exited, the weight in his pocket felt heavier, the letter a quiet defiance. Word spread subtly through the afternoon, handlers exchanging nods in the yard, a junior enlisted slipping him a thumbs up during a water break. No fanfare, but the ripple was there, testing the chain's flex. That evening, as the sun dipped toward the Pacific, Ryan visited Jax again. The dog greeted him with a muffled woof through the crate bars, tail sweeping the straw bedding. He unlatched the door, allowing a supervised stretch in the yard. Jax circled Ryan's legs, nose nudging his hand for the familiar signal. Kneeling, Ryan held up the drawing, though the dog couldn't grasp it. "Someone remembers you, boy. More than the brass." The yard's gravel crunched under Jax's paws as they walked the perimeter, the chain-link fence humming in the wind. Ryan's appeal was filed, the letter its spark, a civilian voice piercing the institutional veil. But as floodlights snapped on, casting long shadows, he sensed the reckoning brewing. Hale would respond, the chain demanding accountability. Loyalty to Jax, to the code beneath the orders, had just gone public in the smallest, most human way. Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach. The hum of the base's air conditioning unit droned steadily in the K9 Annex conference room. where the scent of stale coffee mingled with the faint polish of the long oak table. Ryan Harlan stood at ease in his utilities, hands clasped behind his back, as Lieutenant Commander Hale reviewed the appeal packet with deliberate slowness. The room's walls, lined with faded posters of canine ops in desert terrains, seemed to close in under the harsh overhead lights. Chief Ellis flanked Hale, his expression neutral, while a junior admin petty officer sat at the far end, tapping notes into a laptop. Jax was kennelled across the hall, his muffled whine filtering through the door like a distant radio signal. Subtle, insistent. "Petty Officer Harlan," Hale began, his voice measured, eyes lifting from the folder. The commander's uniform was impeccable, brass gleaming under the fluorescence, a testament to the order he enforced. "You've filed a formal appeal on Jax's retirement, citing performance logs, vet discrepancies, and this." He slid the letter across the table, the crayon drawing peeking from its folds. Emily's words stared up at Ryan, innocent amid the bureaucracy. "Yes, sir," Ryan replied, posture unwavering. Jax's recent quals show no degradation in alert accuracy. The stiffness is minor, treatable with standard PT, and the civilian correspondence highlights the broader impact. He's not just an asset, his service resonates beyond the unit. Hale leaned back, fingers steepled. The chair creaked faintly, the only sound breaking the tension. "Resonates. That's not in the regs, Harlan. Retirements are medical and fiscal calls, not public relations. This letter, how did it even reach the unit PO box? We're looking into a potential leak from that Foundation newsletter. Civilians addressing military working dogs sets a precedent we can't afford." Ellis shifted slightly, his boots scuffing the linoleum. "Sir, the appeal's procedural. Harlan's logs check out, cross-referenced with deployment after actions. If we deny without review, it could flag higher." The commander nodded curtly, flipping through the attached metrics. Jax's detection rates, 98% on controlled sims, 0 misses in live ops. Ryan had compiled it meticulously the night before, cross-checking timestamps from declassified reports. The effort had kept him up past midnight in his quarters, the glow of his desk lamp casting shadows on the photo of Jax from their last rotation. Duty demanded precision. This was his torque, applied through channels. "Very well," Hale conceded after a long pause. "We'll convene a review board, vets, program leads, and the unit chief, scheduled for 0800 tomorrow. But understand, PO1, this elevates scrutiny. Your solo quals continue uninterrupted. No special access to Jax pending outcome. Dismissed." Ryan saluted sharply, the motion echoing in the confined space. "Aye, sir." As he exited, the door clicked shut behind him, sealing the room's deliberations. The hallway stretched cool and empty, lined with lockers holding spare harnesses and leashes coiled like ropes. Jax's whine grew clearer as Ryan passed the kennel door, a pull he resisted per orders. Instead, he headed for the training yard, where the afternoon sun baked the gravel into radiating heat waves. There, Petty Officer Reyes was running scent drills with Luna, the German shepherd weaving through cones with nose to the ground. She glanced up as Ryan approached, wiping sweat from her brow with a forearm. "Heard about the board. Ballsy move, Harlan. Hale's not one for bends in the chain." Ryan nodded, leaning against the chain-link fence, the metal warm under his palms. "Had to try. That letter. It's like Jax has a fan club we didn't know about." He pulled a water bottle from his ruck, the plastic crinkling as he took a measured sip. The yard's dust swirled in eddies, kicked up by Luna's paws, carrying the earthy tang of disturbed soil. Reyes clipped Luna's lead, the dog sitting alert at her heel. Word spreading. Saw Vargas chatting with the Master Chiefs at Chow. If the board flips it, could mean policy tweaks, maybe handler input on retirements. But if it tanks... She trailed off, eyes on the horizon where the Pacific haze blurred the sky. No need to voice the risks. reprimand, reassignment, a stain on the evils that could sideline ops. The afternoon shifted to joint exercises, Ryan pairing with Nguyen for mock perimeter breaches. They moved in tandem along the base's eastern edge, where the fence abutted rocky bluffs overlooking the surf. The waves crashed rhythmically below, a white foam underscore to their radio checks. "Flank left, eyes on the wire," Ryan directed, his voice low over the static. Nguyen complied, scanning for simulated incursions, his movements gaining the fluidity of experience. Halfway through, a Black Hawk chopper thumped overhead, rotors slicing the air as it ferried supplies to the flight line. The downdraft flattened the scrubgrass, sending grit stinging against their faces. Ryan shielded his eyes. The momentary chaos, a stark reminder of the world's demands. Solo work sharpened his focus, but without Jax's flank, it felt incomplete, like a patrol with one sense dulled. As the chopper banked away, Nguyen keyed his radio. "Clear. Harlan, you think the board'll bite? That kid's letter kinda humanizes the whole thing." "Boards don't bite on sentiment," Ryan said evenly, resuming the sweep. "They bite on facts, logs, metrics. That's the play." But inwardly, the letter weighed on him, a wild card in the procedural deck. Emily's drawing, tucked now in his locker, represented something the chain often overlooked: the human echo of their service. Veterans' families, kids piecing together stories from newsletters and news clips, seeing heroes in the shadows. By evening, the base settled into its disciplined rhythm, mess hall lines forming under lantern light, the clatter of trays and murmured conversations. Ryan queued with the handlers, his tray loaded with standard fare, MRE-inspired chicken and rice, a side of greens. At the table, Kowalski slid over, his fork pausing mid-air. "Overheard the appeal in the gear room. Chief's backing you quiet-like. Said it's about time someone pushed for the dog's due." Ryan speared a piece of meat, chewing thoughtfully. "Appreciate the heads up. Just doing right by the partner." The group's talk turned to routine, upcoming quals, a joint op brief, but undertones hummed with support, nods exchanged over coffee mugs. No overt alliance, SEALs didn't rally with fanfare. Loyalty showed in silences. In the way, Reyes passed him an extra protein bar, without a word. After chow, Ryan made his regulated check on the kennels, logging entry at the duty station. The air inside was cooler, laced with the clean scent of straw and antiseptic from morning cleanings. Jax rose in his crate, ears forward, muzzle pressing against the bars. Ryan knelt, offering a gloved hand through the gap. No contact beyond that, per Hale's interim directive. "Hang tight, boy. Boards tomorrow. We've got the logs." The dog's brown eyes held steady, a mirror of shared ops where trust bridged words. Ryan's fingers brushed the scar on Jax's flank, a faint ridge from that Helmand ditch. Beyond the institutional pushback, this bond was the core, the quiet conscience that orders couldn't fully command. As he stood, the kennel's outer door swung open, admitting Master Chief Vargas. The senior advisor's silhouette filled the frame, his presence a steady anchor. "Harlan, board prep solid?" Vargas's tone was gravel, eyes assessing. "Yes, Master Chief." Facts lined up. Ryan straightened, saluting. Vargas nodded, glancing at Jax. "Good. Hale's calling in the base vet, neutral party, but expect pushback on the letter. They see it as external noise." He paused, the fluorescent buzz underscoring his words. "You're stirring the pot right. Reminds me of that visitation policy. Started with one handler's quiet beef. Ripples, son. Just keep it clean." "Aye, sir." Ryan watched Vargas depart, the door latching with a solid thunk. Alone with the crate's soft breathing, he lingered a moment, the weight of tomorrow settling like dew on the concrete. The appeal had cracked the routine, drawing institutional eyes. Public reckoning loomed, not in headlines but in the board's verdict. The chain's response to one man's stand for loyalty unspoken. Outside, The night wind carried the salt spray from the cove, whispering of changes yet to unfold. The review board convened at precisely 0800 in the base's administrative wing, a nondescript building tucked behind the motor pool, its cinder-block walls absorbing the morning's clamour from passing Humvees. Ryan Harlan entered through the double doors, his utilities pressed and boots echoing softly on the waxed linoleum. The air inside carried the faint must of aged files and machine oil from the adjacent print room, a space reserved for high-level deliberations away from the training ground's dust. He reported to the duty petty officer at the antechamber, surrendering his sidearm to the lockbox with a metallic clink, then took his seat in the outer waiting area, hard plastic chairs bolted to the floor, a stack of outdated manuals on a side table. Chief Ellis arrived minutes later, nodding once as he sat across from Ryan, his clipboard balanced on one knee. No words passed between them. The chief's presence was endorsement enough, a silent flank in the procedural fray. At 0755, the inner door opened, and the board secretary, a wiry Lieutenant J.G. with wire-rimmed glasses, summoned them. "Harlan, Ellis, proceed." The conference room was larger than the annexes, dominated by a polished conference table under recessed lighting that hummed faintly overhead. Lieutenant Commander Hale sat at the head, flanked by the base veterinarian, Dr. Kessler, a civilian contractor in khakis, and Master Chief Vargas, representing the enlisted perspective. A stenographer occupied the corner, her keyboard clicking rhythmically as the session began. Jax was not present. Protocol barred working dogs from such proceedings, reducing the partnership to charts and testimonies on the projected screen. "Petty Officer Harlan," Hale intoned, his voice carrying the weight of command without inflection. "State your appeal for the record." Ryan stood at parade rest, eyes forward, the folder of logs gripped lightly at his side. "Sir, request to suspend Jax's retirement pending full evaluation. Attached performance data shows sustained efficacy, 98% detection rate across 47 OPs, including high-threat insertions. Vet notes indicate manageable joint issues. Glucosamine regimen and low-impact PT could extend active duty by 18 to 24 months. Denying this overlooks operational value and handler synergy. Kessler leaned forward, adjusting his glasses as he scanned the digital X-rays projected beside the metrics. The images showed Jax's hindquarters, faint shadows highlighting the stiffness Hale had flagged. The preliminary exam noted early arthritic changes, the vet said evenly, his tone clinical. Standard protocol retires at onset to prevent field degradation. But the PO1's regimen proposal aligns with emerging studies on canine longevity. I'd recommend a 90-day trial under monitoring. Hale's pen tapped the table once, a measured rhythm breaking the room's stillness. Trial periods aren't standard, Doctor. Fiscal constraints demand efficiency. Transport and rehoming costs are budgeted quarterly. His gaze shifted to Ryan. And this external element? He tapped the letter, now photocopied and annotated in the file. Civilian input via unsecured mail. How does a child's drawing factor into military readiness? Ryan met the commander's eyes steadily, the salt tang of the nearby bay filtering through a cracked window. "Sir, it doesn't alter metrics, but it underscores impact. Jax's service inspires beyond the wire, veterans' families, public perception. Ignoring that risks morale dips in the program. Handlers like me rely on recognition to sustain bonds." Vargas cleared his throat, his gravelly voice cutting in. "Board's attention. I've seen similar cases. 09 rotation, lost a shepherd to rushed retirement. Team cohesion suffered for months. Harlan's appeal is clean. It could set a template for handler-vet consultations. Deny it outright, and we invite quiet dissent." The discussion stretched, voices overlapping in clipped exchanges, Kessler citing joint study abstracts from the Army's research arm, Hale countering with budget memos from NavSpec Warcom, Ellis interjecting on unit readiness metrics. Ryan remained silent after his opening, the stenographer's keys a steady underscore, capturing every angle for the official record. Sweat beaded at his temples, not from heat, but the scrutiny, the chain of command laid bare, each link tested by his stand. At 09:30, Hale called recess, the board retreating to a side office for deliberation. Ryan and Ellis waited in the antechamber, the hallway's fluorescent buzz amplifying the tension. A junior enlisted pushed a cart past, wheels squeaking with stacked binders, a mundane intrusion into the stakes. "Solid presentation," Ellis murmured, eyes on his clipboard. "Vargas threw weight. Hale's cornered. Can't dismiss without pushback." Ryan nodded, the plastic chair creaking under his shift. The letter had pierced the veil, transforming a routine retirement into a visible flashpoint. Word had trickled through the base grapevine overnight, handlers in the chow line exchanging glances, a master chief pulling him aside during PT for a quiet, "Keep it tight." No rallies, just the subtle network of loyalty, eyes watching how the institution bent. The board reconvened at 10:15, Hale's expression unchanged as he addressed Ryan. "Appeal granted in part. Jax enters a 90-day observational period under Harlan's PT plan, full re-eval at end. But the civilian correspondence triggers an inquiry. PO Box protocols will tighten. No further external engagement without clearance. Dismissed." Ryan saluted. The motion precise, a flood of restraint holding back relief. "Aye, sir." As he exited with Ellis, the chief clapped his shoulder once, brief, affirming. Outside, the sun climbed higher, baking the asphalt parking lot where Humvees idled in formation. The victory was partial, procedural. Jax stayed, but the spotlight lingered. The letters rippled, drawing brass eyes to the K9 program's underbelly. By midday, Ryan reported to the training yard for his solo rotation, the gravel crunching underfoot as he linked up with Reyes and Nguyen. The air shimmered with heat, carrying the distant rotor wash of a helo on approach. "Heard the board flipped," Reyes said, clipping Luna's harness, her voice low over the dog's eager pants. "Partial win. Hale's pissed. Saw him on the blower to group command." "Enough to keep Jax in play," Ryan replied, scanning the mock scent trail laid out in chalk lines. They moved out as a trio, Nguyen's Labrador Milo flanking low. The exercise was breach simulation, detect and clear a contaminated zone near the fence. Ryan took point, his senses attuned to the wind's shift, the faint chemical whiff planted by the instructors. Without Jax, he relied on visual cues and radio syncs, the absence sharpening his edge. Midway, as Milo alerted with a sit, a base security jeep pulled up to the yard's gate. 2 MPs dismounted, badges glinting, one carrying a clipboard. "Petty Officer Harlan? Need a word on that mail inquiry. Routine follow-up." Ryan signaled halt, the group freezing in position. "Copy. After the drill?" The MPs nodded. Waiting at the perimeter, their presence a visible escalation, the reckoning spilling from conference rooms to the field. Nguyen exchanged a glance with Reyes, the unspoken question hanging. How far would the chain pull to seal the breach? The drill wrapped clean, alerts confirmed, but the MP's questions were pointed. Source of the newsletter leak, handler access to the PO box, potential for morale misuse. Ryan answered factually, no evasion, duty over deflection. Letter arrived unsolicited, forwarded it per protocol. They noted it down, the pen scratching like claws on concrete, then departed with a crisp salute. Afternoon shifted to debrief in the annex, handlers logging scores under the whiteboard's glow. Vargas lingered at the door, his nod to Ryan carrying approval. Stirred it good. Board's note goes up the ladder, could mean policy eyes on retirement's base-wide. The Master Chief's words rippled outward, whispers reaching the junior ranks by evening chow. A handler's stand humanizing the dogs, challenging the metric's cold grip. As dusk settled, painting the kennels in lengthening shadows. Ryan made his authorized visit. Jax rose in his crate, tail sweeping steadily, the bond unbroken by the day's grind. He unlatched the door for a supervised PT session, gentle stretches on the indoor mat, the dog's joints flexing under guided pressure. The air smelled of fresh straw and liniment, a quiet sanctuary amid the scrutiny. "We bought time, boy," Ryan murmured, his hand steady on Jax's flank. The letter had ignited it. Emily's voice a catalyst, pulling loyalty into the light, forcing the system to confront its own conscience. Outside, the base wind rose, rattling the vents, carrying the promise of broader waves. The partial win was no end. It was exposure, the institution's gears, grinding toward quiet reform, one appeal at a time. The days following the board's decision blurred into a heightened routine, the base's rhythm unbroken, yet laced with undercurrents of observation. Ryan Harlan moved through his solo quals with mechanical precision, the weight of his ruck a familiar anchor as he traced the perimeter fence under the relentless coastal sun. The air hummed with the distant whine of jet engines from North Island, mingling with the salty bite of spray from the breakers below the bluffs. MPs had cleared him after the brief questioning, but their visit lingered like a shadow. Notes filed, inquiries routed to the security office for review of the P.O. Box protocols. Hale's directive was clear. Tighten the flow. No more unsolicited mail slipping through to the kennels. In the annex gear room that afternoon, Ryan inventoried harnesses, the leather straps cool and supple under his gloved hands. The space smelled of neat's foot oil and faint dog musk, shelves lined with coiled leads and scent kits in sealed tins. Petty Officer Reyes entered, her boots scuffing the concrete as she hung Luna's vest. "Security's auditing the newsletter sublist," she said, voice low, eyes on the task at hand. "Vargas pulled strings. Keeps it internal, no full breach report, but Hale's briefing the group CO tomorrow. Your appeal's on the radar now." Ryan nodded, snapping a buckle into place with a sharp click. "Understood. Focus on the PT log for Jax, daily entries, measurable gains." He didn't elaborate. SEALs communicated inefficiencies, the bond with partners implied in every adjustment. The 90-day window was a lifeline, not a guarantee. Vets would monitor joint flexion, alert response times, all charted against baseline metrics. Failure meant swift retirement. Success could rewrite the playbook. By evening, as the sun dipped toward the horizon in a smear of orange, Ryan logged his check-in at the kennel duty station. The fluorescent strips buzzed overhead, casting stark light on the crate rows. Jax rose at his approach, muzzle pushing against the bars, with a soft thump, his dark eyes steady. Ryan unlatched the door for the supervised session, leading the dog to the indoor run, a padded enclosure with low hurdles for controlled movement. "Heel!" he commanded quietly, and Jax fell in step, his gait measured but fluid, the scar on his flank catching the light. They worked through the regimen, slow circles to warm the joints, then gentle leaps over foam barriers, Ryan's hand signals guiding without force. The dog's breath came even, no hitch in the rhythm, fur warm under Ryan's steadying palm during cool-down stretches. "Good boy," he murmured, the words a private affirmation amid the protocol. Outside the run's window, the base lights flickered on, patrols tracing the paths like veins of order. The letter from Emily remained in Ryan's locker, a folded talisman, its crayon lines a reminder that Jax's legacy extended beyond evals, touching lives the chain of command rarely acknowledged. Word of the partial win had permeated the unit subtly, like radiostatic building before a transmission. During morning PT the next day, as the platoon ran the beach trail, sand shifting under pounding boots, the Pacific's chill mist clinging to their PT gear, Master Chief Vargas fell in beside Ryan. The senior advisor's pace was unyielding, his voice cutting through the crash of waves. Group commands taking note. Hale's report frames it as a morale booster. K9 retention tied to handler input. You're not out of the woods, but the talk's working. Ryan kept eyes front, breath sinking with his stride. Appreciate the update, Master Chief, just keeping the logs tight. Vargas's grunt was approval enough, the exchange dissolving into the group's cadence count. No fanfare, reform brewed in these margins, quiet endorsements from the ranks upward. The inquiry into the letter escalated mid-week, pulling Ryan into the security office, a squat building near the main gate, its walls humming with server fans and the sharp scent of printer toner. He reported at 1400, saluting the warrant officer behind the desk, a stack of printouts fanned before him. Petty Officer Harlan, sit. The officer's tone was procedural, eyes scanning a screen. Newsletter leak traced to a vet support group, public domain, no malice. But the P.O. box routing, that's on us. Forwarding civilian mail to assets like Jax sets optics we review. Ryan sat straight, hands on knees. Sir, it was flagged and escalated per chain. No intent to bypass. The officer nodded, tapping a key to pull up the letter's scan. Emily's drawing filled the monitor. The child's script stark against the digital grid. Kid's father is a retired E6, subscribes to the Foundation, thinks Jack saved his squad in 14, indirect from a declassified brief. She's not wrong. Your logs confirm high-value detects. The admission hung, a rare bridge between security's vigilance and the human core. We'll classify it as positive PR, the officer continued, closing the file with a decisive snap. No reprimand, but recommend a unit policy, handler discretion on inspirational correspondence, routes it through command first. Ryan absorbed it, the concession a small bend in the rigid frame. Reform sparked by one envelope, rippling into guidelines that honored the dog's unseen reach. Back on the training grounds by 1500, Ryan joined the handlers for a joint scent evolution, the yard's gravel baking under the sun. Nguyen's Milo worked a trail first, nose low to the marked cones, while Reyes and Luna flanked. Ryan observed from the sidelines, clipboard in hand, noting wind shifts and false positives for the debrief. The exercise flowed seamless, dogs and handlers in sync, the air alive with pants and quiet commands. As it wrapped, Chief Ellis approached, his shadow falling long across the dust. Security cleared you. And Hale's looping in the Foundation, formal channel for vet family outreach. Your stand's prompting it. Copy, Chief. Ryan's response was even, but the weight lifted fractionally, the system's gears meshing toward equity. Loyalty wasn't just between man and dog. It echoed in these adjustments, ensuring bonds like his with Jax weren't severed by oversight. That evening, as the base quieted under a canopy of stars, Ryan concluded Jax's PT with a final stretch in the run. The dog's tail swept the mat, a subtle thump of contentment, joints holding steady under the load. Kneeling beside him, Ryan scratched behind the ears, feeling the warmth of fur and the pulse beneath. The letter had humanized the fight, drawing witnesses from beyond the wire. Emily's voice a catalyst, now amplified through command memos. No grand speeches, just the quiet evolution of protocol where conscience met duty in measured steps. Yet scrutiny persisted. The next morning's briefing in the annex carried an edge. Hale present via video link from Group HQ, his face sharp on the screen amid the whiteboard scrawls. K9 program review initiated base-wide, he announced, voice tinny over the speakers. Handler appeals like Harlan's will factor into retention guidelines. Observational periods standardized, 90 days minimum, with PT metrics. External correspondence, cleared through PAO for morale packets. The handlers sat in disciplined rows, nods rippling silently. Ryan felt the eyes, supportive, watchful, as the chief logged the directive. Post-briefing in the kennel corridor, Vargas cornered him briefly, thermos in hand. You're a symbol now, son. Not flashy, but real. Foundations reaching out want Jax's story for their annual report. Anonymized, of course. Ryan saluted. The coffee's steam curling like resolve. The partial win had expanded, Jax's legacy threading into institutional fabric, one quiet reform at a time. As the week closed, Ryan walked the perimeter solo, the fence's links humming in the breeze, ocean haze softening the horizon. The 90 days stretched ahead, a test of endurance for both man and dog. Emily's letter, now a cleared artifact, had pulled the veil, revealing the cost of integrity. Not isolation, but connection, rippling through ranks and beyond. The chain flexed, not broke. Honor preserved in the discipline that followed. If this story already has your respect, hit the like button. It helps the story of Ryan Harlan reach those who still believe in honor. The 90-day observational period unfolded with the unyielding cadence of base life, each dawn pulling Ryan Harlan from his bunk to the familiar grind of reveille. The bugle's notes pierced the fog over Coronado, echoing off the barracks walls as he laced his boots, the leather creaking softly under tension. Jax's PT sessions became a ritual etched into the schedule, logged with the precision of an after-action report, joint flexion measured in degrees, response times clocked to the second. Ryan moved through the kennel run each evening, the padded floor yielding under Jax's paws, the dog's breath steady and warm against his hand during guided stretches. No dramatic leaps, just incremental gains, the scar on Jax's flank fading into routine under the sodium lamp's glow. Word of the appeal's ripple reached higher, filtering down through memos from NavSpec Warcom. Chief Ellis pinned the latest directive to the Annex bulletin board one crisp morning, the paper's edges curling in the salt air. K9 retirement protocols updated. Handler input mandatory for medical reviews. Observational periods, standardized at 90 days minimum, with performance metrics integrated. The handlers gathered briefly after formation, eyes scanning the text under the whiteboard's fluorescent hum. Reyes traced a line with her finger, her voice low. Your logs set the template, Harlan. Vets now consult us before the axe falls. Ryan nodded, clipping Jax's lead for a supervised yard walk. The chain-link fence rattling in the offshore breeze. Just the job, PO2, keeps the unit sharp. But the shift was palpable. A quiet reform born from his stand, embedding conscience into the chain's procedural spine. No speeches in the chow hall. Instead, subtle nods from juniors like Nguyen, who slipped him a revised scent kit during inventory, whispering, "For the next trial." Jax's metrics inspired the tweak. The bond with the dog, once reduced to forms, now informed policy, ensuring loyalty wasn't severed by oversight alone. Midway through the period at 45 days, Dr. Kessler arrived for the interim eval, his khaki shirt pocket bulging with a tablet and calipers. The vet knelt in the run, the air thick with the earthy scent of straw and liniment. As Jax navigated a low obstacle course under Ryan's signals, the dog's alert was crisp, a rigid sit at the hidden scent canister, no hesitation despite the monitored joints. Kessler noted the data, his pen scratching steadily. Flexion up 12 degrees from baseline. Alert accuracy holds at 98%. Recommendation: extend active duty 6 months, reassess. Lieutenant Commander Hale reviewed the report in a terse video brief from Group HQ, his face framed by the screen's edge in the annex. Proceeding as advised. Harlan, your oversight's commended, formally, but maintain discretion. This model's for replication, not exception. The commander's tone carried no warmth, only the institutional pivot. Ryan's integrity had sparked a template, rippling to other bases where handlers now filed preemptive appeals, citing bonds as operational assets. Master Chief Vargas pulled him aside, post-brief thermos in hand, the coffee's steam curling like approval. You're mentoring by example, PO1. Juniors are logging their own metrics now. Chains learning, slow but sure. The external echo amplified when the MWD Foundation's annual report landed in the duty mailbox, a glossy packet addressed to the unit. Ryan slit it open in the ops shack, the paper's weight substantial under the keyboard's glow. Inside, an anonymized case study. Handler Advocacy Saves Partnership, Impact on Retention and Morale. Jax's declassified alerts featured in charts, metrics anonymized but unmistakable, alongside a sidebar on inspirational correspondence as a tool for public engagement. Emily's letter, cleared through PAO, was referenced obliquely, a child's voice bridging civilian gratitude to military resolve. The Foundation had reached out to her family, coordinating a morale packet, photos of working dogs, a signed commendation from the base CO. Ryan folded the report, tucking it beside the original drawing in his locker. The girl's innocence had humanized the fight, transforming a single appeal into a legacy of connection. No longer isolated, Jax's story threaded into mentorship. Ryan briefing new handlers on the updated protocols during weekly rotations, his voice steady over the yard's gravel crunch. Document everything. The bond's your strongest log. Petty Officer Nguyen absorbed it during a joint sweep, Milo's paws padding beside them along the fence, the Pacific's hum underscoring the lesson. Like you did for Jax, won't let my boy fade out quiet. As the 90 days closed, the final eval convened in the admin wing, the room's air conditioner whispering against the summer heat seeping through sealed windows. Kessler's full report projected metrics. Joints stable, detection rates peaking at 99% in SIMS. Hale's proxy, a major from program oversight, nodded approval. Full reinstatement. Harlan, your point on the pilot for handler-vet collaboratives. Report quarterly to group. Ryan saluted, the motion held a fraction longer, the weight of transformation settling. His defiance, quiet, procedural, had reformed the system, embedding moral courage into rigid ranks. Jax returned to active rotation, flanking Ryan on quals, the dog's nose twitching at sense the metrics now honored. The base stirred with subtle change. A new plaque in the kennel annex etched simply, "In recognition of service bonds," unveiling during a low-key ceremony under the climbing sun. Handlers stood in formation, boots aligned on the concrete, as Ellis read the inscription, the wind carrying salt from the bay. Ryan stood third in line, Jax at heel, the dog's warmth a steady anchor. No fanfare for the man. The symbol was in the plaque's gleam, the institution's nod to loyalty beyond orders. That evening, as the sun sank in a haze of gold over the dunes, Ryan walked Jax along the perimeter trail, the fence's links humming softly. The 90 days had tested them, forging endurance into legacy, the SEAL and his partner, symbols of conscience in a world of commands. Emily's letter, framed now in the Foundation's archives, had pulled them into the light, proving one act of integrity could bend the unyielding chain toward justice. In the quiet breath before the next mission, Ryan scratched Jax's ears, the dog's eyes steady. Honor wasn't in medals or headlines. It lived in the disciplined silence where duty met heart, rippling forever through the ranks. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching the case of the SEAL thought no one remembered his partner, until a girl sent a letter addressed to the K9. See you in the next one. In the echo of a single letter, discipline found its truest loyalty, etching legacy into the unbreaking line of service.